Hello from the ForceTronics YouTube channel, and welcome to a tutorial on building a Debounce circuit for a mechanical rotary encoder. And although this will work on any rotary encoder, I'm going to focus on, as an example, the KY-040, which is pretty popular in the electronic maker universe. Before I get started, I'll just mention, if you like what you see here, please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already, and hit the like icon too. That helps me out. All right, let's get started. So we're going to talk about mechanical or switch bounce. And you might say, well, what does that have to do with a rotary encoder? Well, a mechanical rotary encoder basically has multiple switches inside of it. The KY-040 has four. It has the clock that is, pulsed when you turn it based on, a gear type mechanism. You have the data line, and then you also have the toggle switch you can push down on. So you have actually three mechanical switches in here, and you can actually see a lot of bounce in there. And so what is bounce? Bounce is when you're using a mechanical switch of some kind to close a circuit, or open a circuit. And the idea is when that, mechanical contacts open, or especially when they close, they can do that rapidly, and there could be bounce between them, which creates discontinuities and doesn't allow a clean low to high or high to low. Instead, you get this discontinuities, which causes bouncing from high to low very quickly in, typically in milliseconds, could be hundreds of microseconds, which seems fast, but to a microcontroller, that's actually very slow, and it can cause a microcontroller processor to read an incorrect state. So what we're going to talk about in this video is how to make a simple circuit to get rid of this switch bounce. And here I want to show you an example from the KY-040 encoder. So this is measuring its toggle switch line, the SW or switch line, which is always high. It's pulled up, and when you close the toggle contact, it goes low briefly. So what you're seeing here is an oscilloscope capture of amplitude or voltage versus time. And so what we're seeing here is this low state is when the button was pressed, and when it goes high, it was released. And you might be saying, well, that looks like a nice clean transition. We're looking at it at 20 milliseconds per division, right? So it looks like a nice clean low to high. But if we zoom in, so now this is the same exact signal, except we zoomed in from 20 milliseconds per division to 100 microseconds per division. We can actually see a couple bounces. And if you're working with a microcontroller, now these bounces are, well, this first one's over 100 microseconds. The second one's a little less than 100 microseconds. But the idea is if you're working with a microcontroller that's running at 20 megahertz or doing an instruction at 20 megahertz or 48 megahertz, or like the ESP32, 120 megahertz, this is a lot of time. A lot of code can be executed. So if you're using like an interrupt-driven program, you can actually get an interrupt 3 times when you really only want it to happen once. So that's the danger of bounce. And I'm actually going to show an example with the ESP32 and the KY-040 encoder. Okay, here we're looking at a video inside a video. And here I have the ESP32, and I have an RGB LED, which is controlled by one digital communication line. And then here we're looking at the back of the rotary encoder. And so I just wrote a simple program in Arduino that when I turn the rotary encoder clockwise, the LED is blue. And every clockwise turn triggers an interrupt and turns it blue. So if I'm turning it clockwise, it should be blue. And then if I turn it counterclockwise, the same thing happens, except it's red as counterclockwise, and it turns the LED red. So here in my setup, I have no debounce circuit, and no debounce in software. And we can see what happens. I start turning the switch clockwise, which should always be blue, but we can see it flash red. And now I'm turning it counterclockwise, it should always be red, but we can see flashes of blue. So what's happening there? Well, to know if the rotary encoder is turning clockwise or counterclockwise depends on the state of the clock pin as well as the data pin. What's happening is because of debounce on either one of those or both of them, the incorrect state is being read during the interrupts. So, it's mostly blue when we go clockwise, but we see flashes of red because of debounce, or I should say switch bounce. All right, now I'm going to take that out, and I'm going to put in the same encoder, but with our debounce circuit in there that I'm going to talk about next. But you can see now we have our debounce circuit in there connected the same way, but we have the encoder there. And so now we're going to turn it clockwise and counterclockwise, and we should see just straight blue and straight red. right? So we're turning counterclockwise and we don't see any blue flashes. And then we're going to turn clockwise, I bet soon, blue, and we don't see any red flashes, right? Because we've got rid of the bounce, so the states are being read correctly. So that's the effects of switch bounce, an example, and of how we, and also with a debounce circuit, how it gets rid of it. Now, just to mention, if you're new to switch bounce, there's multiple ways to deal with it. Here, we're going to do a simple circuit with simple components of how to address it. You can also do it in software. It depends on the application, how you would handle it. A lot of times, though, in software, it requires delay calls, which I'm not a big fan of because it kind of is wasting processor power. So I typically go the hardware route. You can also find debounce ICs if you don't want to use a handful of components. But the components are pretty simple that we're going to show here. And I'm not saying one is better than the other. They all have their trade-offs and pros and cons. But let's look at the concept and the theory behind the debounce circuit we're going to use for the rotary encoder. And we're actually going to need 3 of these, right? Because it has 3 lines. So here we have our voltage source and we have a simple mechanical switch. So when the switch is open, this pin is essentially floating, and when it closes, we get a voltage, a closed path for voltage to flow. And so on the other side of this Schmitt trigger would be your digital pin that's reading the state of the switch. So first of all, when the switch is open, this is not floating because this resistor serves as a pull-down resistor to keep this low. When the switch closes, now we have this voltage source that's going to be high, and it's going to forward bias this diode. And then we also have this capacitor, which is a key part of the circuit. And the idea here is when this diode forward bias, the capacitor will start to charge. So if we have switch bounce, so if you're familiar with capacitors, they can serve sort of like an energy reservoir or like a filter, right? You can think of them sort of in those ways, and neither way is incorrect. And the idea is if you have bounce on your switch, let's say a sudden quick pulse that goes through this diode, this capacitor is going to quickly pull the energy from that quick pulse to charge up. And capacitors, you can think of them as resisting changes in voltage. So it doesn't allow that quick bounce spike to make it through to the Schmitt trigger and serve as a pulse. Instead, it smooths it out. Same as after we've had some positive, let's say we have a negative going pulse, the capacitor's already started charging, so when that negative going pulse goes, the capacitor begins to discharge because it wants to resist that change in voltage. So it gets rid of or filters out the bouncing. What it also does, it turns your quick transition or pulse into a smoothed out lump or smoothed out waveform that lasts much longer in time. And how long it lasts is dependent on the RC time constant, right? Because the capacitor discharges to ground through these resistors, right? And so there's a calculation you can do for an RC time constant. And so if you have a lot of bounce on your switch, you want a high capacitance value and higher resistance values. These, all these values are tunable to the application. If you don't have a lot of bounce, you want a lower capacitance value and lower resistance values. With this high capacitance and this high resistance, and I'll tell you why I chose a high resistor here in a second. But the idea is your pulses are going to get really spread out, which a lot of times for switches that doesn't matter because you just need to read a high or a low. But the Schmitt trigger actually helps with this problem. So if you're not familiar with the Schmitt trigger, it's really just an op amp and some resistors. But the idea is and this is what it's showing over here. That's why I have this image in there. If U is the input to the Schmitt trigger, A or B is the output. So the Schmitt trigger can take this, analog lumpy pulse and turn it into a nice pulse for digital purposes that has a clear high to low or low to high transition. And so what it does is it triggers off of some voltage point, then, goes from low to high. And then when the voltage drops, it triggers again and goes from high to low. Even though this capacitor is going to create this sort of more analog looking waveform, the Schmitt trigger is going to turn it back into more of a digital pulse. So that's how the switch bounce circuit works. It's pretty simple. All these components are pretty low cost. And if we want to apply it to our debounce or to our rotary encoder for debounce, we can. And so what I have here is, if you notice, this rotary encoder comes with a simple circuit board on the back of it. And what it has is some pull-up resistors. You put in the voltage, let's say VCC. When these switches are open, these pins are pulled high. And we don't have to really worry about the effects of these resistors because typically these pins are being read by a high impedance input like a microcontroller digital pin. But when the switch closes, they create a path to ground which quickly pulls these low. And so in those transitions, we can get switch bounce. Well, once again, we need 3 of these circuits. I have this one, an example, connected to the SW line. But the idea here is when this is high, the Schmitt trigger will output a high. And when this goes low, the switch trigger will do a nice clean transition to a low. Now, one important note here, though, is the reason I'm using my resistors from lab stock. I had a 15 kilo ohm and I had a 20 kilo ohm. Both of them worked fine. But remember, now that we marry this circuit with the rotary encoder, we actually are creating a resistor divider network where instead of going just to a high impedance input, we actually have a path to ground through these pull-up resistors and this resistor in the debounce circuit. And that's why I chose a high value, because if I did 10K here and VCC was 3.3 volts, we would get half of 3.3 volts. And then you're going to lose some voltage across the diode. And we have to make sure we have enough voltage to trigger the Schmitt trigger, if that makes sense. So I chose a value higher than 10K, so we know we're going to get about 2 volts here. We'll lose some voltage across the diode, but we'll have enough to trigger the Schmitt trigger. I know that sounds weird. And what's nice is the Schmitt trigger actually acts like an amplifier too. So even though this is a smoothed out pulse because of the capacitor, but it's not going to be 3.3 volts, but when it gets out of the Schmitt trigger amplifies it back up to 3.3 volts. So it really does a nice job of dealing with this rotary encoder signal. And let's look at an example again. So first, we have a oscilloscope measurement. And notice here we have a lower voltage per division for this access. And we're actually looking at the signal before the Schmitt trigger at the output of the capacitor. And that's why we're seeing this smooth transition instead of a low to high. And you can see we're looking at 50 milliseconds. So this signal is taking over 100 milliseconds to go from low to high. And that's the effects of the capacitor. And that's part of how the debounce circuit works, is it's smoothing out any switch bounce here. But the bad part is, once again, you have now this slow state transition. Once we put it into the Schmitt trigger, and I also point out, notice this is about 2 volts, right? 500 millivolts, 500 millivolts, 500 millivolts, 500 millivolts. So that's 2 volts. But now if we look at it at the output of the Schmitt trigger does its work, right? And so we went from, 50 milliseconds now to 20 microseconds per division. And even at that zoomed in view, we can see we have a nice clear state change from low to high with no bounce. And that's the point of that. So what I did is I did my own PCB layout of the board with these components. And once again, you can do the circuit with through-hole components if if you just want to do it on a breadboard or something. I did surface mount components on a PCB that I can use whenever I'm playing with that rotary encoder. And so I have 3 debounce circuits, right? This big square is the Schmitt trigger IC. You can also make a Schmitt trigger with op amps and resistors if you want. But we have the SW line, we have the DT line, and we have the clock line. And the Schmitt trigger requires a voltage to be powered, so we have VCC going to the Schmitt trigger. This is the schematic view of the PCB layout. And then we have our pins, one for the encoder connect to, and one to get power and ground, and then connect to our digital pins on our microcontroller or processor. And I'll give you here's a quick view of the layout. And this is the circuit you saw in the video. This is where the encoder gets mounted. This is where we connect to the microcontroller. VCC is going to go to the encoder, to the pull-up resistors, remember? And then VCC is also used for the Schmitt trigger ICs. But you can see the circuit here, right? We have the diodes here. We have one of the resistors. I think this is the low value. Then we have the cap with the higher value resistor there. All right, that's it for this tutorial on creating a debounce circuit for rotary encoders. For the KY-040, we needed three debounce circuits. If you're interested in the Arduino code I wrote for that demonstration, I'll have a link in the description to my blog. I'll also put in the description just the part numbers of the components I used for the circuit in case you're interested. If you have any questions related to this video, I'm only going to answer questions related to this video. use the comments section. And if you think I missed anything or have anything to add to this video, please use the comments section as well. Thank you for watching.